Thank you for staying with us. Since the death of former military head of state, Major General Sani Abacha, who was Nigeria's military leader from 1993 to 1998, the country has recovered hundreds of millions of dollars hid abroad. This time, another Abacha loot was discovered in France. The France Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs, Catherine Colonna, during a visit to Nigeria, said she has informed President Bola Tinubu about the planned return of $150 million stolen by the late general. The minister noted that the stolen funds will be returned to the country in the form of grants, and discussions will soon be opened with the Nigerian government on where to invest the funds. The minister also mentioned that discussions between both governments will commence in order to allocate the money to development projects benefiting the population according to the priorities of the Nigerian government. But joining us in the studio is strategy consultant, public affairs analyst, Dikpo Oyiwole. Dikpo, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
Welcome. You see, you needed to see the reaction of Nigerians to this news that another tranche is coming. Yeah. This man is steadily taking care of us. At the time we need this money, he's coming, it's coming, and all of it. Interesting, conversations around it. But there are those who were asking critical questions as to the true nature or identity of the amounts actually stolen by the late general. Because there was a time Serap was, trying to get information on details of these amounts and, in fact, how government had been able to, deliver and deploy these monies, so to speak. And the then Attorney General of the Federation said they did not have an account or the details of how these monies were spent. I think that was in 2020 or so. But Nigerians are beginning to ask, how much really was actually stolen from Nigeria's coffers?
Yes, so I'd like to start on a very light note by saying whenever this conversation comes up, a lot of Nigerians say Abacha is really our father who art in heaven. But going back to your question, yes, that is a very good question that we have always been asking, that how much is the exact figure altogether? Because sometimes we hear they have given us back 100 million, other days it's 200 million, now it's 150 million. So we'd like to know the actual volume of what we're missing and where the money is
left.
What is left, when we're to expect it back. Are we getting the principal of the money, or we're getting the interests that has been accrued on the money? We need to have a full accounting of it. And I think with regards to the former Attorney General that you mentioned, that was quite an embarrassing time for us, where a lot of us complained that you cannot say that you do not have an account where the government has been spending money. But with this current development and the possible or the pending repatriation of this $150 million, we're hoping to see government deploy it into very strategic parts of the society and the economy. But it must also reflect that they are also in touch with the Nigerian people and that they understand what the people are really saying and what the current economic and social climate is right now. So it must address those needs.
There's also the question about what past monies have been used for, even though on the face level, it's been said that, like in the past, the last tranche, so to speak, under the Buhari administration, there were talks by the government that it was used for critical projects such as infrastructure. But, many activists and observers have been asking for, more scrutiny as to what these monies, where are they going to? So far, independent analysts are saying that the monies from the Abacha loot alone is more than trillion now, more than $5 billion, over more than 20 years or thereabout. But where do you stand in this argument as to, shouldn't we be asking questions as to where indeed, if indeed they went, let's know the breakdown of how the monies have, been spent, so that this time around we might also have, more scrutiny in this regard?
Yes, I mean, I totally support that. And I believe that this particular government has a very unique opportunity right now to further prove that they are quite accountable to the people, So this is what I would recommend to the government of the day, that even before these funds come, let's have the records of how previous funds had been spent. Let's know what came in. Let's know what they went to. Now, either you can account for a lot of it or not. It's not your concern. You were not the government in power, right? But we need to know, because that would also give us the confidence to know that you, the government of the day, are very serious about accountability and that you will be deploying these funds judiciously. Because so far, that's the challenge Nigerians really have. Because, I mean, $5 billion into what parts of the economy, into what part of the society, into what part of the country? If you deploy $5 billion into a particular sector, I mean, there will be drastic changes. So over time, so that's why I said this particular government have a very unique opportunity to see how they can also earn more of the trust of a lot more Nigerians by being accountable. Let us know how much has come in so far. Let's know what and where they were deployed to, and then before we can start having the conversation about what you want to do with yours.
Well, this year again, I think sometime in July, Serap actually pushed. There was a report I saw to get details of all of this, but it was said that there was no response, so to speak. But perhaps we're hoping that over time we'll get that response from government if they had previous records, because they just came into government. So it has to be based on the previous record they met on the ground,
Yes,
that they can hand over now to whoever is asking these questions. But let's get back to the person of Abacha again. There are questions as to if he did really embezzle these monies, if these repatriations are actually genuine efforts to get back what is rightfully ours, or if it is just some sensationalism that we are looking into. Because if we know where these monies are, shouldn't we be putting pressure and government taking the necessary steps to ensure that these countries indeed refund us what is rightfully ours?
Well, yes, I mean, with regards to the fact that if he embezzled this much, I would say it's quite possible, because, I mean, it was a military regime at the time who was going to be asking questions. There was no issue of somebody countersigning anything. If you said you wanted some money transferred, you transfer it, or you got shot. It was that simple. But with regards to having the records and being able to tell us where the monies are right now and what it's being done.
If it is genuine efforts get
yes,
our monies, yes.
So I believe the genuine efforts, because, okay, so this is it. Even if it's for sensationalism, are we getting something out of it? So I like to look at the glass being half full, okay? What are the low-hanging fruits in whatever situation that we're surrounded by? Do we have anything to at least maybe hold on to in a particular situation,
at the end of the
in
day,
a particular scenario? Yes, because so if we say that it's for it's
sensationalism, yeah,
do we then say, okay, let France keep the money? Is that what we're saying? No, give us our money, let's deploy it into, we need the money. We need the money. We can't keep saying that we're getting loans everywhere and then we have money stashed up somewhere. So that also goes back to the conversation around how much is the money, where are they stashed, and how can we get them back? Because I believe that to some extent that we can have an idea of where those monies are. If
really?
Yes. So this is a misconception that a lot of people would also believe. Now, it would be possible that even as a military dictator, I'll tell you, okay, transfer this money here and there. You'd be surprised that there would be records kept
somewhere.
Because either you like it or not, at the heart of every military person is a very serious sense of meticulousness and discipline. So if the records are not for the nation, if the records are not for you that I gave the instruction, the records will be for me that give you the instruction, because I need to know what is where and how much is where. So there are records somewhere. Now, if the government has access to those records, I believe they can. But I mean, governance, politics, and all, it may be a bit of a delicate dance. But I believe that for the sake of accountability and to also earn the trust of the people, because over time we've talked about the trust deficit that people have in government generally here. So I believe that this is one way that we can always get to earn that trust from the government side of things and and let us have some sense of what is really going on. At the same time, I like to play devil's advocate, if I may, that it's also possible that when we do get, if we do get a lot of this information, it may cause a lot of troubles in certain quarters because, I mean, some of it will just be too alarming and overwhelming to believe. But at the same time, because people are under a lot of pressure already, and then you're telling me that one individual stole $5 billion, and then the records come out to reflect that maybe it's 2x of that. And then over time, you're trying to, I mean, remember back in the day when we were using the Abacha stove with the sawdust? I mean, where I was back then, I remember where we had to go to the sawmill, we had to walk kilometers to go get sawdust, to bring it back home, to have the Abacha stoves done, put a Coke bottle in it, stuff it, and
Life that people lived at the time.
that was how we lived. So the question is, we didn't have to live that way.
If we had this money.
If we had this money. So we didn't have to live that way. So there are a lot of people who have a lot of pent-up anger from that time. People couldn't afford health care. There were people who lost children.
Can you hold the thoughts?
Yes.
We will come back to this matter after the break. Stay with us. All right, thank you for staying with us. We're still talking about the $150 million planned return of Abacha loot by France, and we still have our guest in the studio, strategy consultant, public affairs analyst Dikbo Iwole, speaking with us. And you were speaking about the livelihood at the time, that if we had such monies, how Nigerians were living, and how it is that some Nigerians still have a grouse with regards to how things were at the time. I want you to take on that, and if you think with this repatriation, there might be some shift in their mindset to say, oh, at least we are getting these funds returned to us. But then, are they seeing the impact? Would be another issue.
Good question. So, as I was saying, I mean, the way we lived back then, it was subpar. If we're being honest, there were schools that went on strike for a long time. There was a lot of uncertainty. We didn't know if the military they were going to march into schools. We were in boarding school at the time, and we didn't know what was going on. If there was maybe an armed robbery going on, if there was gunshots on the streets, we didn't know if there were soldiers or armed robbers. We didn't know what was going on. There were things were pretty bad back then. But talking about having these monies back and how we'd feel about it, you asked the right question, saying that we'd have to feel the direct impact of these funds being repatriated, because we can't just say that, okay, these monies are coming back, and then the common Nigerian on the streets aren't feeling it. So for me, I would like to see this current or this incoming money, this $150 million, to be deployed into other areas aside from infrastructure. This is why I say that. Now, over time, we've always heard that the monies are all gone into infrastructure. You're trying to build a bridge, you're trying to repair roads, fine. I'm not saying investing in infrastructure is bad, okay? But like I said at the beginning, we must also be able to feel the pulse of the Nigerians on the streets. Now, with the way things are economically, with the harsh realities we're facing, we cannot sustainably say that we're giving our palliatives, right? So how about we see this particular tranche of money be invested judiciously in the education sector and in the health sector? Because you can say that we're...
transportation.
And possibly transportation as well, because those are the areas where Nigerians will feel the true impacts directly in the shortest possible time. If you're saying you want to deploy it for 4th Mainland Bridge, when is that going to be done? With the current realities we're facing? So the government must they must pay attention to the current realities of what is going on with Nigerians right now, and see how they can deploy these monies as soon as possible into these very sensitive areas. All the areas I've talked about have respective ministers at the federal level where they oversee ministries. By now, I would expect that they've gotten various reports from their counterparts at the state levels, and also to see what's on ground at the federal level. So they should be able to give the president certain bullet points, say, okay, you know what, whatever you allocate to us, this is how we'll break it down, this is where it is going to. But we must be very deliberate with how we deploy these resources, or else we will keep having this same disgruntled attitude we have towards this particular conversation. And frankly speaking, this is not the time to have it, because a lot of people are desperate, a lot of people are angry, a lot of people are hungry, a lot of people are discontented for various reasons. So we must see how we show the people, from the government side now, that they understand the plight of the people and that they can relate to what Nigerians are going through by deploying this particular tranche of money into these areas we talked about: health, education, and transportation as well. Those are the areas where Nigerians will feel it very, very directly. You have general hospitals, upgrade them very well. Don't have people go to general hospital and then the patient is the one who has to go and buy syringe, buy drip, buy all of that. No, let's have these resources deployed where they should be deployed, into transportation. Let's see how we can have the mass transit back into the educational sector. Let's see how we can get qualitative education, have schools built with furniture in it, and have teachers trained from it. So these are things that the common man can feel directly.
Right.
Aside from saying that we're having
talking about following the money, because some of my takeaways from what you've said so far, the issue of impact, and yes, on the point of following the money, a former president was quoted as calling the courts, the intervention of the courts, to calls for the president of the day of that time to tell Nigerians what these monies have been used for. Let us see the proof that they were used for what they said they were used for. And the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, is quoted as saying, he's calling all the people asking, and the court stupid for that he has done his own bit in facilitating the repatriation of these funds. And so those questions should be pushed to the Central Bank of Nigeria or the Minister of Finance. And I wonder what you make of it, because in addition to that call now could be, what is the role of the lawmakers of the National Assembly in this regard? Because these monies are not even appropriated for, they were not even in the budget. So now we are having this.
So it's excess liquidity.
Humongous amounts of excess liquidity, absolutely, coming back into the market. And what are the lawmakers doing, to help Nigerians understand where the money is going to?
Exactly, which was going to be my next point with regards to the role they have to play in this particular conversation, because they have to also show that they're quite responsible and they understand how to deliver their own duties. Because I would expect that even they ask a lot of questions with what the federal government wants to do with the money. Because this is excess money. It was never in our budget. It was never expected. Now we're saying it's coming through, and the question is, where is it going? We can't just say that this money is just going to disappear. So yes, the members of the National Assembly also need to sit up and see how they can ask questions, the right questions, on behalf of the Nigerian people. Because for now, their place is to ask the federal government the questions and hold them to account, to say that you are the ones getting the money. Where's the money going to go to? You have different appropriation committees and all of that. Okay, if it's going into health, we have committees for that. If it goes into transportation, education, we have committees for that. What is the oversight function that they are saying that they are performing? What balancing of the democracy are they really doing if they are not asking these questions? And let me also say this as well, that this is also the time for us as Nigerians to also get to ask the lawmakers questions as well. We must also prompt them to do these things, should in case they do not know to do them, which I'll be surprised if they do not know. But we've had this conversation for too long, where we've always left governance to the people who were elected and appointed, the people in government. Democracy is a social contract between the government and the governed. So far, we like to ask the government questions. The governed are not playing their own part in this particular conversation. We must play our part in this social contract that we call a democracy. So it is our responsibility as well to see how we can hold the members of the National Assembly to account, to also spur them to action. When they know that they are also under pressure, then we can see results. But if everything is laid back and they think everything is business as usual, they choose not to ask questions, we do not hound them, and then the federal government is saying, okay, this is how we believe it should go. Because if we're saying that they need to be able to feel the pulse of Nigerians, it's the members of the National Assembly that can really communicate that, because they represent constituencies. So the question is, what are the demands? What are the pressures? What are the needs of your constituencies? So if you have, We have 774 local governments. What are the common denominators that tie us together in terms of challenges, in terms of things that need to be addressed? So that's why at that level, they must be able to communicate to the federal government that this is where the Nigerian people want these monies deployed. So the people of the National Assembly have a very critical role to play, not just to ask for transparency, to know where this money is going, but to also be able to hold government to account, to say that we are communicating this on behalf of our people, the Nigerian people that we represent in the green and red chamber, that this is what they want, these are their expectations, these are their needs, these are their demands.
And I'd add that people then should begin to pressure their lawmakers to make this demand at the end of the day.
We must.
Anyway, we have to wrap up this conversation. Strategy consultant, public affairs analyst, Dikpo Uyewole. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.